5 p.m. and I'll call the City Commission. We're going to do the work session, the regular meeting first. Just a roll call, please.
Commissioner Waldridge? Here. Commissioner Tippett?
Here.
Commissioner Wissman?
Here.
Commissioner Sauer?
Here.
Mayor May?
Here, we do have a quorum. And I would just ask that if you don't mind, we'll take a recess from this meeting, and then we'll
Go into the meeting.
let the county call themselves to order for the joint meeting, and we'll do the same thing. So can I hear a motion to recess?
I move to recess.
Second, Mayor.
Moved by Commissioner Waldridge, second by Commissioner Tippett. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Okay, ayes have it.
Okay.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll again, please.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Here.
Commissioner Tippett?
Here.
Commissioner Wissman?
Present.
Commissioner Sauer?
Here.
Mayor May?
Here, we do have a quorum. Everybody's back. All right, thank you all for indulging us. We do have one employee recognition tonight in our Cheers for Peers program. The recipient for January, we had two actually. Jonathan Parker from IT. Is Jonathan here? I don't think so. And Adam Curry from the Parks Department. Adam is here. So Adam, thank you for all your continued work. Are we going to recognize anything tonight or just you already received?
Adam is here.
Yeah.
Adam's here.
Can you stand up, Stand up, Adam.
Yes, stand up.
All right.
Just want to thank you as I think I'm the only avid golfer here. Just want to thank you for the excellent job, and not just you, the entire staff and the pro. Your tender loving care of the golf course is noticed, and I just wish you would slow the greens down just a hair in the Governor's. Okay? You're welcome, buddy.
That sounds like insider stuff.
It's like putting on that tabletop, buddy.
Has that been good?
No, it means you play a lot.
He does a lot.
Could you come to the mic just for a
Do
second?
you like turf with a certain?
Tell us a little bit about all your different jobs with Parks.
So I'm for anybody that doesn't know, I'm the golf course superintendent. I take care of kind of all the facets of the maintenance side on the golf course, and then coordinating and taking care of hosting the events along with the golf pro. Been with the Parks Department for 16 years now.
Wow.
And my entire tenure at the city, and still loving what I do. So, and just wanted to say briefly that I appreciate the opportunity to be recognized, and then also the opportunity to recognize another employee. I think it's good that we do it across different departments. Sometimes you don't know the guy in another department, but if you do, and if you recognize good work in somebody else, it's nice to be able to express that. So, thanks for the recognition and the opportunity.
That's very generous and humble of you.
Sir.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you for the long hours. We know that you stay very late sometimes, and you're always helping the staff over at Parks, regardless if it's dealing with the greens or not. You're always helping with the events, especially. I always see you at Reforest Frankfurt and working really hard, so I really appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for saying so. My pleasure.
Yeah.
So everything sounds good. You're all right.
Yes, sir.
That was the cue. David? Caddyshack? You're supposed to stand up and dance like the gopher back there. Kenny Loggins music. Cue. Thanks. We had the sound system set up.
Yeah.
You're only missing the cues. We're not
Before my time.
I got it.
The rehearsals aren't going well. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, really. All right. Next item, citizen comments. We have 3 people signed up. Rodney Williams is here, and his topic is various.
Various?
Various. Thanks, Rodney.
Or value. I don't know, is that French?
We'll see what he has to say.
Variete.
Well, to tell you the truth, Mary, I wanted to leave it open, just depending on what CRM's presentation as well as Commonwealth Economics presentation was. But in particular, 2 of you, Mr. Tippett and Mr. May, and I guess Laura too, Ms. Ross, will remember about 1.5 years ago, myself and some others in my industry went through a series of gatherings that was initiated by our former city manager, Ms. Steinhauser. And we put together a working group, and we came up with a brief presentation to you, made it to you, went to the fiscal court, we went to the Tourism Commission, Planning Commission, just about anyone else that would listen to us as we were going through the community development planning process back in 2018. So based on some of the conversations that have taken place recently with parcels B and C, with some of the decisions that you've recently made that's before you over the next several weeks or several months, regarding the YMCA project and others, I thought it would be a good thing to remind you some of the things that we shared with you a year and a half ago in August of 2018. So if you bear with me, I want to take just a couple of minutes and read that to you one more time. It was an open letter to the leaders of Franklin County community and to its citizens. It says, as local financial institutions with a genuine invested interest in the revitalization and strategic growth of our community, we want to take this opportunity to provide our insight and support for Franklin's transformation. In looking at communities across the country that have done this successfully, we recognize that nearly every strategy contained the following ingredients: a shared vision, effective local leadership, a committed business community, and engaged citizens, all of those working in partnership. Over the past year, our community, with the announcement of the Capitol Plaza project, and remember this was in August of 2018, so some of these comments are somewhat dated. Over the past year, our community has been positioning itself for just such a transformation. Since that time, local leadership at the city, county, and partner agencies have funded a community engagement and master planning process for downtown and the riverfront. We've pursued and received federal grant funding for infrastructure improvements along the 2nd Street corridor, with Mr. Knowles is leading up that project. We received an opportunity zone designation, which will allow us to incentivize investment into one of our oldest neighborhoods, as Mr. Wisman mentioned earlier. Been recognized nationally as a top-performing micropolitan area for the 4th year in a row, and received the Kentucky Travel Industry Association Economic Engine Award. I won't read all of it, but I just want to point out a couple of other comments that was made at the time that I think are pertinent to your considerations again over these next few weeks and coming months. At the time, we said to be successful, we believe local leaders must be willing to be strategic risk takers, and I want to point that out because I realize that some of you may not have had the opportunity to look at projects of this magnitude, and I can understand that it can be somewhat intimidating to imagine.
1 minute.
Thank you. To imagine what the future may hold, to imagine a finished product when there's not a finished product there right now. But I do want you to be, or I'm asking you to be strategic risk takers. That may not be your natural approach to things, but I think in this instance it's necessary for this to be successful. As Craig pointed out, it's close to $100 million in potential investment in this project, and obviously a lot of moving parts. Tax increment financing is new to our community. It has been done successfully in other communities in Kentucky and throughout the country. So I ask you to please do your research. If you were wanting an advisor, an economic or financial advisor with the TIF project or considerations, John Ferris's group with Commonwealth Economics would be the one that I think everyone would refer you to. But obviously they're working with CRM, so I do like Mr. Parker's idea to find a third party that can give you advice on the matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Okay, next, Sue Porter and the city attorney wanted me to remind everyone that we are limiting to citizen comments, but not taking additional testimony, as we said at our last meeting, on anything to do with the insurance.
That's right.
So,
So just to make sure everybody understands, when we had our last discussion on insurance, we agreed, the Board of Commissioners agreed there would be no further testimony related to, I put that in quotes, related to these particular issues. So that's it, that's all.
Oh, okay.
They'll talk with their hands.
Sorry. Okay. Brent Swager?
Well, good evening. I wanted to hit on a couple different things. First off, I know later on you have an agenda item about the budget amendments, and I'm happy to see that the additional funding for the Thoroughbred Trail is on there. And I appreciate that you'll support that project. That's been a part of Walk Bike Frankfurt's work. And in fact, personally, I've been involved with it for about 20 years now, so I cannot wait to see that thing constructed. So happy to see the funding is going to be in place for that finally. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, there's been all this discussion about spending, lots of different projects people are interested in, YMCA, ball fields, Humane Society, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of good ideas that are coming up. What I would love for the commission to start thinking about is the development of a capital improvement plan, CIP. And I think that city managers working towards something like this, and I think this is critical. This is something that's been missing from our community for a long time. A capital improvement plan is simply a 5-year look at what are the projects that we want to build or programs that we want to institute. It's a roadmap, if you will. It's a strategic way to plan for what we need. It's not a spur-of-the-moment political decision. Somebody comes with a need and all of a sudden you have to make a decision today. This is something that you're planning for 5 years out, and you readdress it annually to see if it still makes sense, if there are priorities that need to shift. But it's a baseline that everybody has to start each year. There's a lot of things that can go into that plan. Looking at parks, roads and sewers, sidewalk projects, buildings and facilities. We were talking about fire station and city hall improvements a couple years ago. Not sure what happened with that, but those probably need to be in a 5-year plan. Planning studies, engineering studies, so that we can have cost estimates to plan for the actual construction costs. What we want to implement in our downtown master plan needs to be included there. Programs like our historic districts renovation. And then special projects like the Humane Society or the YMCA or whatever else that the community and the commission deem are important. So I think it's important when you develop a plan like this that it's a public-based, heavily based on public input. And it's supported by all these other plans that we've been working on over the years. We have a Home Street plan that was done well over 10 years ago. We have a comprehensive plan. We have a bike ped master plan. We had different sewer studies, the downtown plan, parks master plan. There's lots of things that need to feed into our overall investment plan. So I want to encourage this because I would like to see it so that as a citizen, I can see what we're going to be building, what we're going to be working towards, not just this year, but next year and the next 5 years. And so I just want to leave you with that. I'd like to see this year the commission put together an investment plan, a 5-year investment plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
I want to point out too, we have in other years had those type of plans. We had the equipment, we had the capital improvement plans, which we did a lot of our park stuff, like how the aquatic center ended up coming.
Aquatic center.
The problem is the commissioners turn over every 2 years, and it's just hard to keep the priorities. I mean, it would be great if everybody would buy into something that we talk about now in, like the next 5 years, but we can't.
And Mayor, may I?
It seems hard to do, but it's a good thought. It is. We've done that.
May I?
Absolutely.
Planning is wonderful. It's a great tool, but unless and until you have the revenue and the resources to implement your plans, and quite frankly, it's only just recently that we've had the kinds of funds and resources to implement any kind of plan. And I would submit that, there have been plans for a very long time for projects like Dolly Graham. We just didn't have the resources to implement that. And it was a priority on the previous Board of Commissioners that I was on. So I take your point, but I'd also agree with the mayor that, there have been plans. They have existed.
And the communities that do capital improvement plans, it's a fluid document. You have some revenues that are set, and then some that come in through different grants, and also it can outline what types of grants you want to go after. So if you have a project in year 3, you can start putting the applications for the grants in. It helps guide the actions of the city and the city staff.
I agree. I think it's a good idea. You're not far off. I agree on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Brooks. Oh, you're just like they're shaking their head like that. Okay. Just asking. And David Livingston, same answer? Okay, thanks. Did anybody else want to say anything on citizen comments that didn't get a chance to sign up? All right, thank you. I'll give that back to the clerk. Let's see. Do you all mind if I add one thing real quick on this March to Selma?
No, that's...
it's...
She said March to Selma.
March to Selma, that is the crossing reenactment.
Yes.
Senator Neal had asked for some help on this, and our emergency management director, Tom Russell, said his suggestion would be that the city adopt this as a co-sponsor, so that would help with permitting, et cetera. Okay. And Mr. Russell's here, can answer any questions if anybody has them. If not, we would just ask the commission to authorize.
I move that we co-work with this program.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Walters.
Second.
I couldn't tell. I heard two. Did I hear two?
It was me. My voice cracked, Mayor.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Tippett. Any discussion? No. Please vote.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes, and I know that all the commissioners will be getting, I believe, everybody will get invitations.
The Black Caucus is sending us out. I'm part of it.
Gladly do that, Mayor. Thank you.
Staff reports?
Katie Beard.
Good evening. I've got a few things to bring to your attention and to request some additions to the regular meeting in a couple weeks. First of all, on action items for the regular meeting, I need to add the first reading of the street and sidewalk ordinance. This goes along with our right-of-way policy update. There's some language in the ordinance that needs to change, just dates and fees mainly. It's pretty straightforward, and we're working on that now, and we'll get it out to you to review. The second, I'm sorry.
No objections.
No objection.
Okay, sorry. Next thing is a Recollect app. It's a recycling app, and let me find the memo so I say the right thing. The Solid Waste Division would enter into this 3-year contract. It's a smartphone app, and the county will be using this app as well. And it's mainly just a way to get information out. They can get on this app and see what they can recycle, what they need to throw away, where, if there's any drop-off locations for things. They can see when our free weeks are. They can see all of our requirements on this app, and they can submit requests and questions through the app as well so that we can respond to them in an efficient manner. So that would be, let's see, a yearly amount of $4,925 for 3 years. So I would request to add that to the regular agenda, to consent
What is the
agenda.
number again? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the amount, $4,925.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that's in relation to, we have to have an interlocal agreement with the county. We don't? Okay.
They discussed, yes, that's why I held off on it, because we weren't sure, but we decided we could do a separate contract for the city, separate contract for the county without the interlocal. Okay. The third thing is, we have a consultant that does our annual report, as well as helps implement all the requirements of our stormwater permit. It's an individual that was working back in 2015 at Burgess and Nyepel, and the contract has kind of moved with her. Her name's Laura Kurtz. She's currently with Stantec, and so the request would be to reassign that contract, which is, sorry, I skipped a step. It was reassigned to Tetra Tech after Burgess and Nyepel, and now we request to reassign it again to Stantec from Tetra Tech. So this is just a permit. It was a 5-year permit. So this is the last year of it. Next year, we'll probably rebid this to get a consultant for it. But at this time, I can get all that information to you as well to add that item to the consent agenda next week, or 2 weeks.
Do we object? If not,
No objections.
Okay, and then the last thing is just an update for you. Two-way main, the conversion of that to 2 ways is out to bid right now. It was currently scheduled to have a bid opening Wednesday of this week. We are extending that 1 week to the 19th so that we can still have that before you on the 24th. But there's some question about the signal pole. It got misplaced, and so they think that they may have another one, or we possibly may have to order one, which could delay for the delivery of that pole. But we just want to have those clarifications in place before we receive bids.
And that was KYTC's portion of the project. They were going to donate
That's
the
right.
signal pole, so we're dependent on them.
And they still will, yeah.
The, Mayor, the signal pole is there at Ann Street, in West Main. Is that what you're talking about?
That's right, yes.
Okay, just want to be clear.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Katie.
I didn't accept that.
Jimmy,
That's it.
so just sitting there reading sheets, it's no reports.
Yeah.
So my mic's on, right? You heard that? All right, next item would be
Anticipation.
discussion items, mayor and commission salary update.
I'll ask Kathy Fields to step up. And I'll summarize, there's kind of 2 issues going on right now. One is just to clean up an existing ordinance. This needs to be done. We're going on the intent of what you're all meant to do in 2017. It's not really clear in the ordinance. We need to clean that up. There was also a request to look into other communities' pay rates for the city commissioners and mayors. So that information's in your packet as well. That's a separate issue. I'll let Kathy summarize.
That was an excellent summary. So hopefully the sheets that I've handed out will help to make clear why we're asking for just a cleanup effort with our ordinance describing the pay for a Board of Commissioners. In 2017, we adopted a new ordinance that was intended to clarify the Department of Local Government's role in terms of setting a cap for how much a board could receive, which we did. But what we also did in that ordinance was list an actual dollar figure pay that was identical to the dollar figure pay that was listed in our 2010 ordinance. So in essence, there was no pay increase that happened for 7 years, which really wasn't the intent. So if you look at the sheet that I've handed out to you, you can see in the back, it starts with our 2010 ordinance, which I've circled what the pay rates were for the mayor and the 4 commissioners, $19,000 and $14,000. Then in 2017, 7 years later, we still have those same pay rates of $19,000 and $14,000. So that was not our intent that 7 years would pass without any kind of increases to the rate of pay. There's also a little bit of ambiguity with how it's written because it has an effective date of 2017, but it's not necessarily clear that those pay rates tie back to 2017. So that's the reason that we're putting in an ordinance change to just clean that up and make it expressly clear that the pay rate would start with the current pay rate that commissioners receive, and going every year thereafter, they would receive an increase, the lesser of the cost of living adjustment that's awarded to full-time employees or the Department of Local Government's statutory limit. So the top sheet actually shows where the pay was listed in ordinance and where the pay would have built to over the following 3 years. And then the next section shows where the pay actually was in 2017 and where it would have built to get it to where it's at today. Any questions about that or why we're seeking an ordinance change to just kind of clean up the language?
Anybody have any questions?
Well, yeah, sure. And I must say, Ms. Fields has been very helpful to me in going a little bit different direction, and that was finding comparable cities that are second-class cities that are within 5,000 population up or down. And in doing so, it turned out that the city of Frankfort for commission pay was the second highest out of 6. And the mayor fared much better, Bill, Mayor May. It was the 4th highest. So I just submit that information for your all's consideration.
And I guess I've kind of covered part one of why we're seeking an ordinance change as a cleanup effort, but then part two, as Keith indicated, was also to provide some wage survey information. So I'll pass out this sheet also.
Just want to correct, that was backwards, Commissioner. I came out, or the mayor position came out, you all were second, I was 4th. I like the one that was 75,000.
Yeah, you like that.
In looking those numbers up, Commissioner Sauer, did you also look up the percentage that was given to us by Kathy, Ms. Fields here? Did you look at the same percentage rate in their ordinance as well? Does their ordinance read exactly as ours?
Early on, Ms. Fields, I thought, was going by population.
Okay.
And then I further refined it to second-class cities as Frankfort has been. And so that's where I took my figures from Kentucky League of Cities and their pay schedules.
Okay, so the ordinance was not taken into consideration. Okay.
Yeah, here's another list that she just handed out that is more. Now, some of those I don't think are second-class cities, are they?
No, that list is actually
Georgetown.
what I would hope would be a fuller picture, since it reflects cities that were city class cities, but all home rule cities now. So it's consistently reflecting home rule cities. And I highlighted in green those that are city manager form of government, because in my view, that would be particularly important to consider a population size and a form of government that is very parallel to the one that we have.
Correct.
And what that sheet will show is that Frankfurt kind of falls in the middle with the pay. On the low end, we have Ashland, considerably low end, with $9,000 for the mayor, $7,000 for the commissioners. But then we also have on the higher end, we've got Richmond and Paducah, Paducah is very comparable in size, Richmond a little bit bigger, but $26,000 for the mayor and $23,000 for the commission. So I feel like when you kind of look at size of community and form of government, which reflects to the role that the board serves in, that where pay falls, if we accept the ordinance change, it really falls right in the middle of being neither high or low.
Kathy, Georgetown, could you just not find a figure for the Georgetown council members?
Georgetown is listed on there. Oh, you're right. That must not have been produced. That came from the Kentucky League of Cities, and so they must have reported on mayor only.
And there must be something wrong with Jeffersontown, unless they're just volunteers.
And do keep in, that's an 8 and an 8 and a 12, so we have much larger commissioners.
But thank you.
My guess is that this was the wage survey data that they received, and so those fields were probably omitted when it was, and so it showed the zeros.
Okay.
All right, let's just clarify, there's two things at play here, I think. There's a cleanup ordinance we need to do, or we're going to have to cut the mayor's pay by $2,400 and the commissioner pay by $1,800 from the way we've been fielding it. There's another issue that's the pay they get now, is it adequate? Somebody had brought up a possibility of raising that. That's two issues. I think we need to do the cleanup, and then you all need to figure out if...
I'm for the cleanup.
I'd request that you go ahead and put that on our voting agenda for the next meeting as it is, as a cleanup agenda, without any alterations.
And I would, Mayor, I have the floor.
Yes, go ahead.
I still think we need to direct staff to find research ways to figure out what they would recommend as a base salary for the commission. I just feel like, I mean, I'm retired, I don't need the money, but I just feel like if we have a higher base salary, it will interest some people. It will increase the pool of folks who want to be on the commission. That's just my gut. So.
I agree.
Conversely, I think we are in line with cities comparable, even larger than us. Bowling Green, nearly twice our population, and have a lower rate than we're paid currently. I think we leave it as is.
Admirable self-denial, Commissioner. Admirable self-denial.
Doing it for the money.
You'll get a couple of votes from there, maybe.
Oh, well, good.
I'll give you all half my salary for the rest of the year if you make sure that we do these meetings in less than an hour.
He's doing that because he's supposed to get a gift card, so please don't. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, I didn't take it. They said, but we're not going to do it.
So do we have a directive here, Mayor?
We'll put that on for the voting meeting to do the cleanup.
To clean up and then have the staff move forward. What was your wording? Move forward and seeing something that could be comparable for salaries.
Is that a directive
I don't know if it was or
from
not.
the board? I just,
You can ask.
I'm fine to look at
That would be free.
Study it.
since I'm not going to,
Yes.
I'll do that.
Right.
I wouldn't do it for myself, but I'll do it for the future.
There you go.
That's what we all should do. We're not all promised.
just, Mayor, if I may, on that directive, of course, I think staff is happy to do further research into the salary amounts, but there also may be, we may want to look at an outside party giving us some advice if at all possible, because it's a little difficult for staff to suggest an amount for their bosses to make.
Would KLC provide that service?
I'll check in with them and see what they recommend.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Occasionally. Occasionally. Blind, hobbling, naked.
All right, man.
All right. Number 2, agreement with KYTC for installation of signs on US 60 and US 127 South. City Manager.
This is simply, we had a form come in, we've talked about 2 signs that would state the home of Wandale Robinson 2018, Kentucky Mr. Football, one on US 60, one on 127. Both state roads, we're pretty much ready to go. That agreement for $750, the transportation cabinet will make the signs and install them, and it required a signature. It hadn't been real clear if we have full support. I just want you all to make a clear directive if we're okay for staff to sign this document and move forward.
I would like to make the motion, we move forward on
Second.
this.
Yeah. Let's agree for that.
Oh, that's 3.
No.
Moving right along.
I can direct
Yes,
the staff
indeed.
to, or you can sign it.
It doesn't matter, I just was asking.
We'll have the mayor
Does
sign
anybody-
it?
No, it doesn't matter. Just making
We
sure.
are
Does
not
anybody
opposed to
disagree-
that.
Anybody disagree with that? Okay, we can, we'll figure it out.
Mayor, I would like to ask that we come up with some protocol process for future designation, that maybe we can have an annual or biannual review as people are awarded and come about, that we have a process for changing that in the future.
What are we
Ask
changing?
staff to come up with something. We can have a nomination, simple nomination process that's brought to the commission, some kind of specified.
I don't know if that's really a nomination he actually won. I don't think it's a nomination. I think it's maybe something, as I stated before, that we can make knowledge of those that have passed or something if we want to do something downtown to acknowledge those or what have you. But it was not in our realm of the past mistrack and things of that nature in the past. We're just trying to correct that moving forward, and I think we need to be on that. As soon as those are awarded, that's something that we should be proud of, and it should be automatic that the city commission and Ms. Beard could move forward in without it really going amongst us technically. I mean, it's a reward. It's something all cities do. But I do agree, and I agreed at the beginning, I think that we should do something, or maybe have something downtown that celebrates all of our people at all times. But I don't think it's so much a nomination, because I don't think anybody would vote against the hard work of any of our athletes, regardless of who it was.
I was gonna wait till you go first. All right,
Mayor, my
is any-
comment is more that there are many worthy people, and we need a codified process for determining who will be the one sign that we're allowed at the welcome entrance of our city. Many other people have been suggested, and I want some process that would be fair if someone wanted to change a sign every other year or at any time. Just what I asked the staff
I
to
think this
review
was
some process.
a unique situation,
Yeah.
and to be the #1 high school football player in the state of Kentucky, I would say qualifies. Whether it's basketball, wrestling,
correct.
or whatever,
Yeah,
when you're #1.
Yeah, and I think it should have been done for our past mistrack and Mr. Baseball and things of that nature. It just falls on the city of taking that responsibility and speaking up and doing it. And by all means, if there's other people in the city that I'm aware of that are #1 in the state for anything right now, by all means, please bring their name to the table so we can take them into consideration. Because I apologize, I don't follow all sports. I see them in the paper. But if someone is #1, then we do need to take that consideration on which student athlete we have. So please do bring that forward. I wasn't aware that there was anyone else in the city that was at the top.
Well, you were limited
So I
to
apologize.
athletics. There were potentially, we did have the state poet laureate or something, another community has put up a sign
who
now.
A poet?
Dr. Richard Taylor.
There needs to be a process for identifying who gets the accolade. That's all I'm asking, for staff to come up with some formal process.
Well, we do need to vote on
Right.
the motion, and then we can,
I think we have 3 for that.
we have to vote.
Yeah.
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Waldron?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes. All right, number 3 is removed, Second Street Tiger Grant Project. Mr. Knowles.
You okay down there, Sauer?
Please?
You okay down there?
No, I just have a bad cold.
I just wanna
Commissioner,
check on you,
I appreciate your
though.
concern. I really do.
Yeah, just checking on you.
I'm taking Mucinex right now.
Okay.
Thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you tonight about the Second Street Tiger Project. As you'll recall, last year's preliminary engineering phase involved identifying numerous roadway design features Two of those were to transform the intersections of 2nd Street and Steel Street and 2nd Street and Shelby Street from signalized intersections to four-way stops. We took those possibilities to the public hearing at the public library late May last year, and both of those options got favorable review from those involved in the public meeting. So we pursued with the Transportation Cabinet those changes. Of course, they had to be comfortable with what we were proposing, and we submitted a traffic analysis and asked them for essentially approval to proceed with that in the design of the roadway. We received approval from them to do that, and so what we wanted to do was proceed with making that transformation as soon as possible, so people could begin to get used to how those two intersections were going to operate, which is a four-way stop. Last week they contacted us and asked us to get local concurrence, which they typically do for a change like that. They seek local input. So I prepared a letter for the mayor's signature that would go to the Transportation Cabinet, essentially locally supporting the decision to do that. They said once they got that, they're in a position to pretty much make that change in the next couple of weeks. So you have before you, I guess, an opportunity to give the mayor the authorization to sign that letter of concurrence that will go to Transportation Cabinet.
Move that we concur.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Call the question, Mayor.
Seeing none, clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is the adult softball MOA at Capitol View Park.
I'll let Mr. Pickens.
We got lights. I hope Craig's watching.
Thank you. Yes, we've had adult softball at Capitol View for a long time. We know there's always been some issues with that at times. It's cost, it cost the city, part of our budget, a significant amount to operate that. So the past, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, they were a lot of talk about not doing it anymore because of the issues that it was bringing and things like that. Last year was it got better last year, but there really wasn't much organization to it. So this year we decided to issue an RFP to look for a more organized adult softball group that could handle the operations for us and take the burden off of us. Our staff is limited. That can be out there on the weekends till 10 or 11 o'clock at night or later. That also, takes a lot of our, we're trying to do recreation programs and we're dealing with other stuff that we just don't have the capability of. So long story short, we need to get some help with that. So we issued that RFP. We received 2 responses and we evaluated those, the staff and myself. We went through those and we selected who we thought was the best with the response to the RFP and through an evaluation process and selected the Players Association, which is, they're based out of Louisville. There wasn't any here locally that was operating or responded to the bid. So basically, I mentioned a lot of the pluses to us. It's going to save us, we calculated, around $60,000. Before, we would pay the umpires, we would pay the referees, we would purchase uniforms, we would have to all our staff would be there all day, all night. So with this, their staff is going to be there all night, and they're paying the uniforms, they're paying the referees and the umpires, they're staying there all night, and they pay us rental fees to use the property. For the tournaments, and these are also operating leagues as well. Right now there's 13 tentatively scheduled tournaments on the docket already with them. Nothing set in stone, obviously, until the MOA is approved for you guys. Then if you guys approve it, we still are waiting on final approval from the state because that's their land. So Keith and I have been working on that just to make sure that it fits within the realms of our current lease with the state. We don't see any issues yet, but we're just finishing up on that. So I will take any questions you might have.
You have any questions?
Just one quick question.
Okay, go
Is this the project that I helped work with earlier?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's just thank you for clarification.
Yeah.
What would be the revenue on one of those tournaments?
Won't be a whole lot to us specifically, to parks or to the city. It'll be more of your derived revenue from restaurants, hotels. Many of those tournaments I just mentioned will be Saturday, Sunday tournaments. So they'll be here hopefully Friday night and Saturday night, if not at least Saturday night. And coming in, there'll be double eliminations. So hopefully they're here for the day and eating at restaurants and stuff. So that's kind of where you'll see the revenue from.
Need a motion, Mayor?
You need a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Tippett, second by Commissioner Waldron. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yes, just thank you. This is a nice development in a way to continue a program that we
Yes.
may have cut. And
Yeah.
though we're not making but $100 a field a day, it gives an opportunity to continue that without hitting our budget
Elimination of
too
a
hard.
This is tournaments and leagues for the local folks. So it won't just be out of town. And also they'll be running the leagues for any local church groups, corporate groups, city employees, state employees can all come and play in those leagues. So.
And as I note here, entry league fees for teams is only $400.
Yeah.
And your leagues are $2,000.
That's what they're going to be paying us to
I
host
like
the
that.
leagues. Yes.
I like that.
They'll be paying us to host the league.
We
and
need to
operate
do
it.
more of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming up with another idea. Instead of eliminating a program, is fixing it.
It was
allowing
it was a
it.
team effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we know, we've in the past sometimes adult softball. Sometimes we have issues that I alluded to. We're hoping to avoid that. But in the MOA, I don't know if you read it, but Laura and I went over it 1,000,000 times to make sure our language was right. And if something was to go haywire and things got out of control, because sometimes adults getting competitive can get a little crazy. There's really strict language in there on that. If we don't like the way they're controlling the league or the tournament, if the TPA is not controlling the way we'd like it, we can cancel that contract within 2 weeks without any cause at all. So we don't think we'll have to do that, but it's there. It's there just in case.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Call question, Mayor.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes. Next item is 2021 Transportation Grants
Mayor.
Resolution. Yes.
I'm sorry, before we move on, that was to put it on for the February voting meeting, or are we moving forward? I just want to make sure I understand.
I think we just approved that language.
That-
In the way.
If for some reason the state wants to add language or change language, we'll have to bring it back before.
Okay.
When's the
So
first
that was-
tournament scheduled?
It's tentatively mid-March, so we're kind of on a time crunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Just making sure.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah.
Is that clarified?
Unless the state changes.
I think Commissioner Sauer wants to start a softball team.
They used to have one. Sauer Hardware.
Yes, right across the street from the courthouse.
Interestingly enough, my grandmother and her sisters were on that team.
Is that right? I was a bat boy on one of those teams.
Wow, that was
He
fun.
said bat boy, not bad. That was with a T. He was a good kid. Everybody in our neighborhood was good. We're good.
Yeah.
Except for David Kamek when he came along. He's a great kid. He's a great kid. So anyway, back to the grant resolution.
The transportation grants, I'll let Rebecca, the transit.
This is a resolution that we pass every year for our transit grants. We have operating and also capital. Our operating, I think, is slightly higher than we actually received last year, but that doesn't mean we'll get it. We're asking for a little bit more. We may get it, which will mean just a little bit more from the city coffers, but again, we may not get what we ask for. You'll notice that our capital...
Excuse me, may I interrupt you, please?
Sure.
We want to approve this. Mayor, I move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Tippett, second by Commissioner Waldridge.
Save you some breath there.
I was telling them, I need to teach y'all how to start making motions as the person's walking to the lectern. That's how we do.
Just kick me on the table, man.
That's all right. That's all right. Any discussion?
Yes, I just want to point out, again, we've got two halls that are absolutely fantastic. Rebecca Hall and Jennifer Hall. And they work so well together. And again, we're talking about where we put up 20% of the money in administrative and capital, and the feds put up 80%. And I just think they both do a remarkable job.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Thank you very much.
Great, Kenny. Hopefully you can beat that.
Ready to go.
Commissioner Waldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman,
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer,
Yes.
Mayor May.
Yes. Next item is Kentucky Inter-System Operational Permit with Farmdale. Kenny Hoxton.
Can I speak?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Kenny will explain, normally we wouldn't put something in front of you on a rush. The county has an EPA, large grant from the EPA related to a sewage treatment facility at Farmdale. And this CISOP would help explain a new route they're going to take to develop infrastructure to get to the city of Frankfurt sewer system. And they would like to get some clarification there to try to get that EPA grant realigned for the new work. So they're on a tight time frame trying to accommodate. Laura and I haven't had a full time to review this document, but we wanted to get it in front of you all for either if you want to comment tonight or if you want to take the time to read it and send us individuals.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Second. We've read it.
This is not ready to approve.
No.
This is just, if you all have any comments related to this, we can talk about them now, or we just want to start the conversation.
I read the draft.
This is really what this is to get us started on this. Everything in this document is at draft form and can be changed. But I wanted to make sure that you all understand every number that we put in this between our engineering firm that we hired to give us a cost assessment of what we needed to, as a refund on our part. Our ratepayers would not pay a dime extra for any flow that would be coming from Farmdale. That's one of the main things that I would want to make sure that you understand. Our ratepayers would be completely, they would not see any of the cost that would be coming from this project. There's capital recovery in it. There is enough money in the line item to make sure that the sewer cost to pump and treat is completely covered. So this is a very early document, so it can be negotiated. Obviously we'll have to do some negotiation with the county, with Farmdale Sanitation District as well. But I wanted to make sure that you all saw this and knew that it was kind of on a time crunch for it.
So we can just give him a directive to investigate or do what he needs to do, right? Okay.
You too.
I have a question. I do have a question.
Too.
Go ahead.
Quickly. What's the fellow Pete? This is Pete Goodman.
Pete Goodman.
This is essentially his mandate for us, right?
It was his mandate. He is no longer Director of Division of Water.
Okay. But we're essentially implementing what they want us to do.
Correct.
And we're being good citizens by doing it.
When we requested our extension, this was one of two main things that they asked us to do. One is a modeling, which we have a meeting update on next week. We're almost completely done with the modeling of our system. This would be the second that they had asked for us to do.
Correct. That's how I understood it when I received it. So
Mayor,
I understood it.
I've read and I'm quite concerned. There's a lot of, I'm appalled that anyone would have tried to approve this immediately. There's great concern here. The size of the Farmdale Sanitation District is nearly 3 times the size of the city of Frankfurt. There's a lot to discuss about potential inflow and limiting the amount that can service that we can service with our current system. And it essentially means that we're going to be rebuilding our sewer treatment plant at a much faster rate than we needed to before. But again, the state kind of has us over a barrel and we're going to be obligated to do it. But I think we have a lot of due diligence to do with this document to make sure that our city taxpayers are not impacted to uphold short planning in
Right.
the county that was done 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're now failing and impacting us. So we've got a lot of due diligence to do.
And there are two impacts that we're looking at as well. One, the environmental impact of these small package plants out there. There's no second guessing. They have to be taken care of. The second impact that the sewer department will be dealing with is an industry that will be probably within the next 3 years being removed from our system. They have requested to go a different route instead of, so that's a revenue loss that we will incur. So the only way for us to make up that revenue is to either add customers or to raise rates. We prefer to add customers instead of raising rates. So that's the two major things that have gone into this.
Potentially defers replacement, which saves us too.
Yes.
With less usage, so.
And with that industry possibly going away, that would open up for any new industry that would want to locate here as well.
I had only had one question, but it was already answered before meeting. However, you support this. This came across our desk as a suggested receive, file, and approve. And so you stand by this.
There's still some things that we need to work out.
Right.
Obviously, we have to negotiate with Farmdale as well. But this was the document to get us started, and we wanted to make sure that you saw it. But this is where we're starting from, so that as moving forward, you would have the history behind it.
Okay. And if we have any, I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. And so if I have any other questions, I can just continue to come to you to answer those questions as other information is noticed.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this to us, Kenny, but I believe our legal has not even had and our city manager has not had time to fully review this contract yet. We've got, I hope to meet with you, and I just expressed that earlier too.
Oh, okay, we thought, well, I think it was confusing because we saw in here receive and file, and the staff recommendation is approved, so that, I think was confusing.
It was an attachment in an email on its own that said you had not had time to review and that this was only for informational purposes at this point.
Yes, this was only for information at this point.
Thank you.
We just need to start the process to help expedite it so the county can not lose a very large EPA grant.
Yes.
Right.
Mayor, may I?
Well, I'd already recognized Commissioner Sauer.
That's fine.
That's fine, sir.
Real quick, and I'll come back unless you want
Kenny,
to.
you must be very confident in the Prevention Park pump station that they can handle all of this.
It is a newly designed pump station that we are currently in the process of building. We're about 60% design right now, and so we expect that once we have all that done.
And all these factors have been taken into place.
Most certainly.
Kenny, this is actually, isn't it a combination of...
Commissioner Westman, let me go back to,
Sure.
I recognize Commissioner Tippett after a second, Commissioner Sauer. Commissioner Sauer is through you.
Kenny,
Commissioner.
I believe I sat in on no less than half a dozen to a dozen project meetings, and this originated in Ms. Steinhauser's tenure, correct?
That's correct.
So this plan has been going on, yes, this plan has started back then.
Oh,
and
even
it's-
before that?
And it's ongoing and evolving, right? And it will continue to evolve, and the truth of the matter is, we really don't have an option not to accept that effluence. We would not be good citizens if we didn't accept that effluence. Now, are we trying to mitigate the costs? Absolutely. Okay, we're trying to mitigate the costs, but this process is ongoing. Thank you, Mayor.
Now, Commissioner Westman?
Nothing more, but, well, actually, I was just asking, the pump station is actually a combination of 3, and we're rebuilding this just for this project, in a sense, right?
No, our plans were already there to combine 3 into 1. And with this project coming in, we were able to combine another station, so now we're taking 4 into 1 and giving Farmdale a spot to where they could essentially tie into our system. And by making the capacity such that we have capacity now plus future capacity in the future, or for future growth, and as a part of the cost recovery is that they would have to repay us for their portion of the cost of this pump station.
And just one other thing, my concern is we don't have control over development out 127 towards Farmdale and otherwise. and we need to make sure we have a document that enables us to comment on future development when it may create overcapacity of our systems.
They have requested an initial capacity, which is in here. And with that is their capacity that we can give them. If they start to get at 90 to 95%, we may say, okay, we need to go back and say, all right, you're going to take up another 30%, then you need to repay another 30% of the cost of this pump station. And that all those things can be done.
And that's in time.
Or any future capacity increase, if we're reaching the capacity of our plant, we can require the cost recovery on the increase in the plant size.
That's correct. Right. All of that is listed in the document itself.
Yes. Yes.
One more question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So Kenny, is it your professional opinion that the state is trying to, I don't want to say force, but trying to navigate us into becoming a regional center, treatment center, that we accept effluents from a defined region rather than just our boundaries?
We are already a regional facility. We accept flow from Woodford County already. So that is we're already classified as a regional wastewater facility.
Okay, so one more question, Mayor. May I?
Absolutely.
I didn't want to be this long, but we're going to fully explore this. Can we expect the state to help us defray the cost of this regional center?
No.
Okay.
I do not expect any of that.
Okay.
Since the election and the change of administration, we have not had a meeting with the Division of Water. We plan to get that within the next month because we should have our hydraulic modeling. This will be on the table, so we want to make sure that we're still following the plan that the Division of Water would want for us. So we'll be requesting a meeting with them to make sure that all of this still falls in line with what they would request from us.
What I would anticipate happening, if this CAISOP, if we can get it done with the county, it would assist the county going back to Washington and requesting that EPA grant to be converted to an infrastructure to build the piping to Frankfurt. And I think the State Division of Water would come on board also requesting that the federal EPA make that change. So they will help in an indirect way to help fund this project.
And the other part of it is the state revolving funds with KIA. I know with the Farmdale area, that has been one of the number one projects that they have been pushing, which allows Farmdale to actually get money that would be forgivable. I don't know the percentage of what they would forgive them on their loan request, but when you get to that would be their part of what they would be supplying. It would not behoove us to request those because we would not get any forgiveness on those loans.
A lot of this in our 501 plan. Correct?
Yes.
I'm just saying that for the record. So if their maximum capacity is 1.3,
that would be their max peak flow that they would be allowed to send us. That would be with inflow and infiltration. But they're paying per gallon, so it does not matter on that. They would be paying the same price whether it's inflow or whether it's just regular full strength sewage.
And our plan is 10, like right at 10 million.
It's 9.9 right now. With our request to the state, we would go up to a 12 million gallon a day facility. And with the construction of 2 new clarifiers, we would request to go up to 15 million.
And the holding tank can hold
10 million gallons.
On a peak day, it would be able to hold that.
It's 10 million gallons.
So I was just trying to think. But again, we're mandated in our 501 plan, so there's not a whole lot we can do.
Right.
Well, what I would suggest is we review this now. We work with Farmdale. We also work with the county, the signatory line on there to assume a few things. So we bring it back to you in a more complete form, but we wanted to start this conversation so maybe in a few weeks we could get something done on this to help them. I think their grant had a deadline of March 31st, yeah. So we need to get something to them, I would hope, in early March, so they can take it to their congressman.
Kenny, I hope you can have a meeting with Department of Water and make sure that we're complying with their new.
Yes. There's been a lot of shake-up over there.
Before we take any action.
There's still several people that were there when we were discussing all this. So
I'm just determined that we are not going to subsidize development all the way to Lawrenceburg on the city's dime in any way.
And that's the goal of this document, is to make sure that we
Counteractive
don't.
to the productive of the city and building the city. And I want to make sure that what we allow to come in from that area is limited and cognizant of limited growth. So we institute more growth in the city instead of rampant sprawl. So that's my goal. Thank you.
Understand.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny.
The next item is purchase of Caliber CAD system and canceling the GeoConnex software. Police Chief, did you want to say anything, or do you want us just to approve?
There's no action on this.
There's no action.
It's just a discussion.
He said you're trying.
30 seconds.
I appreciate your effort. Approximately 5 years ago, the dispatch center and the police agreed or entered into a deal, I should say, with this GeoConnect software. And it has not panned out. It has caused a lot of problems. It hasn't worked right in the whole time we've had it. They tried to blame it on different things, on our network, on our equipment. Our IT department has solved all those problems. It's still not working. We have officers who don't get the information they need, dispatchers who can't get the information they need. And the fire department didn't even start trying to use it because they were waiting for us to work out all the kinks that we had. That deal is almost over anyway. We've done our research. This Caliber Public Safety is a CAD software company that is being used in the region. It's being used by KSB. It's being used by Lawrenceburg, Anderson County. And it has been tested and tried, and it works very well, and their officers are very satisfied with it. So this is something that we are going to bring up during budget talks to prepare. So we're not asking for anything at this time, but we wanted to make sure you were aware of it because the initial startup cost is, something we're going to have to discuss during the budget.
Honestly, I'd like to see a general consensus with legal counsel's advice later that we can start moving forward. We'll talk about it in our FY21 budget process. It'll be a big ticket item in that budget. But if we can go on and get started next month or so, or the month after, we're ahead of the game. We can start making changes. I don't expect to incur costs till after July 1. But we just want to get you all on board because it is a big ticket item. Don't want to get ahead of you in the budget planning process.
And not only is it a big ticket, but it takes a while to start the implementation, training and the software and everything that goes into it. So if we can get started on it, we should be able to get it in place close to the end of the calendar year. So something we want to.
I think it's an imperative step. You said, my question for you was going to be about integration with the state police because there's been so many issues with their locals being able to find the information the state has and the lag in process costing valuable time sometimes. So this is the same system that the state police are using currently?
It is the same system. They're putting it in place right now, okay. But Lawrenceburg is already using it. Mercer County is already using it, and yes, we can. Right now, we have to call out to KSB or we have to call Lawrenceburg, give them information. They have to type it all in again. We can actually, with this system, we will be able to send that information straight to them. They'll have it all, and and then there won't be that possibility of lost information, through the phone call. So.
I think it's imperative that we take action to do this. I'd like to see the budget, of course, but I will support you fully.
Any other questions?
Budget would be needed.
Yeah, no, good.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, next we have first reading on a budget amendment. Would ask that the solicitor read it by title.
Mayor, I have two questions.
And summary only, but before we do that, let me recognize Commissioner Wisman.
Just a couple of clarifications. We had put the park master plan and the Sauer Field lighting at lower values last meeting than are reflected here. I was wondering if we can have an explanation. I believe the parks plan was 100,000, not 125, and the Sauer lighting was 300, not 485.
It was actually 485 by the time we left. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
As I explained in previous emails to the entire body, that the we felt the intent is totally subject to your all's change. We felt the intent of Sauerfield lighting was to light both fields, and the number thrown out here was 300,000. We went back and found our estimate, it was 485,000.
Correct.
So it's your all's purview if you want to change it back to 300, but we felt it'd be sneaky not to increase that to what it truly costs.
Right.
Parks Master Plan, we were talking about 100,000, and it was brought up possibility of adding a 25,000 to that master plan to do an economic and more detailed look at upgrading Capitol View Park. Yes, sir.
Concerning the lights, that email, I think a $400,000 would be a better number. I went back because I thought that seemed a little high, so I went back. That was an early phone conversation that I had with them. I said, well, what would roughly these lights be? And that's the first number they threw out. But they came and did an on-site evaluation, kind of, not anything official, just gave us a rough estimate. So 400,000 would be closer on the 50 candle watt light versus a 30 candle. The $300,000 was for 30 candle. That's for stadiums of 2,000 people or less, which would be perfectly sufficient for Capitol View currently. But 5 years from now or next year or whatever, we increase the capacity of seating to above 2,000. Then KHSSA standards requires 50 candle lighting. So to get 50 candle lighting currently would be about 400,000, not 485.
So top of the line LED, what do we get?
That's
a lot of money for.
that is top of the line LED.
Can you just reiterate exactly what that's for? That's for the ball fields and the.
That's just Sauer 1 and Sauer 2. Sauer 1 and Sauer 2 soccer fields.
So that we're using the existing poles on Sauer 2?
Yes, correct.
And new poles and new lights for Sauer 1?
On Sauer 1, yes. The Parks Master Plan, I'm not sure why that went to 125. We haven't gotten any official quotes on a master plan. It could very easily be 125,000. Yeah. The first loose estimate we got was around 100,000, so probably 125. Give us a little leeway. It's probably not a bad.
In the meeting the other night, we had a whole lot of discussion on Capitol View as a whole. Maybe diving deeper, if we throw a bunch of money in there, we see a return on our investment. That's more of an economic analysis than a master planning. So if that is not the intent, let's go back to 100. But we talked about bumping that a little bit to see if we wanted to.
Like I said, I don't know until we actually put out an RFP to find out what we're actually going to cost. I mean, it could easily be, depending on how in depth we go, it could be 125,000.
So these numbers are essentially contingencies.
Yes.
Yeah, they're in here, so we don't have to come back to you. So we don't want to be too low.
Right.
And have to do another budget amendment prior to the end of the fiscal year.
These were the numbers that left us at our last meeting, that we discussed, the 485 and everything.
But this is the first reading. If you want to change them now.
So I'd like to change the Sauer lighting then to the 400 at a minimum.
I actually contacted the lighting company today. They sent me a revised quote for 50 candle power, both fields, same specs, be about 400,000.
But if we leave it at 485, we're not committing that money. No.
No. I mean,
What will be the real truth is when you get your RFPs back.
Right. Which is what we agreed to.
Yeah, that'll give you more.
hey, we got lights.
No.
Also, I
my
had
favorite
a
thing.
question. We don't have the animal shelter's initial first year allotment. We agreed to edit the current fiscal year for 1/3 of the animal shelter's contribution.
Sam Marks and I are going to be working on an agreement to bring to you all later. We're currently working with YMCA on how we'll structure that funding. What I was thinking is we would not contribute to Humane Society till they raise enough funds to go along with ours to build it, then we would execute our gift. Is that what you understand, Mr. Marks?
Hate to ask you to do this, but because of the record and Cable 10.
Right. Take the walkers.
Well, I did dress for the occasion.
That's all right.
You're used to this, aren't you, Sam?
Didn't really think about it. Hi. That's fine. I guess the only thing, we just want to be sure we have the commitment. So I don't know how that part of it works, but That was all. So otherwise, as far as how it's done is up to you all.
Mayor, I believe the motion that we approved at the last meeting was that we were going to adjust this year's budget for 1/3 of the $1 million contribution and go ahead and set that aside. And we ask our finance staff to look at ways that it may generate its own revenue over the next year, and with the next year's contribution, that we contribute the full amount over the 3 years, the next 3 fiscal years, so that you could claim a match already to move forward with fundraising activities, was my intent in that original motion.
May I speak?
Absolutely.
I would suggest Mr. Marcus and I, work up an agreement to be approved by this board and the Humane Society Board that spells out directly funding. Previous talks with the Humane Society member, or with Mr. Marcus, was the contribution would come after the additional funds had been raised. Instead of committing, if they don't raise enough funds, we don't want to have money tied up that could go to the project. But I think the first thing we need to do is get an agreement so you can use that when you go out to raise the rest of the money. You can say the city is committed through this agreement to fund $1 million worth of this project. And then you have a goal. You have an end number that you need. So we just need to get that agreement going. That would be my suggestion to this board.
Right, and again, from our standpoint, we just need the commitment that's our main purpose. If we have the commitment, we can use that for our fundraising.
Sam, we'll go ahead and use this, but I just wanted to bring that up because it was not intentionally or not set aside in this budget amendment, that we are committed, and I would like to ask you to work with the staff to get that in the next 30 days. Let's get that agreement done and move forward with this project.
Absolutely.
I think, too, if anybody looks, the city commission voted to commit $1 million.
It's on the record.
We're encumbered on that. So I would say look at the minutes of our meeting. If someone needs to say that, we can verify it, and none of us are going to change.
Right. It's on the record.
But does that help, or do you need something further?
Yeah, I just wasn't real clear that you'd actually voted on it, but I mean, if it's on the record, then we should.
We actually voted to do $1 million.
Yes.
So in the agreement, we'll show it as well, if that will.
And Mayor, may I? I'm getting deja vu all over again here. The board sets policy, and we agreed to $1 million number. Staff, professional staff, then works out the details and presents a recommendation to the board for us to vote on. We do not interject our intent into the process, only at the highest level and only at the policy level.
Can you repeat that again? Do you need my mic?
Okay. There's $1 million encumbered.
Right. It's the will of this board, Sam.
Animal shelter.
Thank you very much.
Whatever you asked for to be on, I'm not sure what's going on.
And keep in mind, I grew up in the neighborhood with Mrs. Miller, Irene Miller, as did Mr. South, Commissioner South.
That's good clarification. The lighting, are we changing it to 4, and what are we doing with the park master plan?
What's the will of commission on the 2 items on number 15 and number 16 in terms of the Parks Master Plan and the Sour Fields?
I agree that we move it to $400,000, as Sean Pickens stated that he had made a phone call to do. Does everyone agree? Is there any?
Agree to that.
So I would say take that $85,000 off.
So this actually, we need to amend.
The actual budget ordinance, which is going to require the math. And if we want to have the first reading tonight.
We have to do the first reading. Okay,
then we need to.
Give us a second to let them calculate this.
We'll need to change it tonight.
We have to do, it's a formal thing, we have to do an actual amendment to the.
And with he has a statement. I'm going to let him get it.
Okay.
No.
Great.
I would say just approve as written, but give us guidance that you don't want to go over 400,000 for the light. And then we can go on and have this. Dolly Graham is holding up on this. We have some other important items on here. If you want to give us guidance that, we'll approve the 485, but staff, stay under 400 or under. Right. If not, come back to us before you spend more than $400,000.
That would be the easiest thing, if we just leave it.
I second that. Is there a motion on the table, Mayor?
Well, I wasn't making a motion.
I was going to finish reading. Can you finish reading?
I don't think.
Do you have anything else that?
Commissioner David, if you want to make a motion,
Yes, you can.
you're in order.
Okay. I
Does the
move
engine
that we
come-
amend, I'm sorry, you're reading the question.
No.
Oh,
Does
if you
the
amend- just want to
engine
say one
come
thing real quick,
with
just
the
point of
door?
order. If you amend anything, you're going to slow us down. Right
It's
now, if we
gonna-
do the first reading.
Let's just do the
tonight,
first reading.
It goes like it is, and that just allows the staff to spend up to that amount, and they have to come back. They won't spend anything. All this would have to be approved. These all are going to come back before us at a later date, and we can also, if anyone needs to have any corrections made, we can do that then.
Okay. Go ahead.
So we don't need a motion.
We do not need a motion. All we need to do is just let the solicitor read it by title and summary only.
Okay. An ordinance amending ordinance number 9, 2019 series appropriating the revenue to be received by the city of Frankfort for fiscal year 2019-20. This ordinance amends the 2019-20 budget to provide money for the city of Frankfort to fund specifically the following. Number 1, 2019 downtown revitalization grant, $100,000. Number 2, fire training grant, $13,000. Number 3, FIS reimbursement of the 2017 contract, $34,303. Number 4, Humane Society Building Study, $26,463. Number 5, Women's Shelter, $10,000. Number 6, lump sum contribution of sick leave for retired employees to KRS not included in budget, $154,346,000. Number 7, new ambulance engine, $32,000. Number 8, purchase and upfitting of 2 vehicles and cost to transfer usable equipment to existing 2017 Explorers, $66,924. Number 9, Dolly Graham Park renovation project, $500,000. Number 10, pedestrian bridge over Benson at Riverview Park safety structural inspection, $15,000. Number 11, field lighting to Legends and Williams Field, Capitol View Park, $10,000. Number 12, increase in downtown reinvestment grant, $50,000. Number 13, increase in neighborhood reinvestment grant, $22,000. Number 14, concert stage and associated costs, $125,000. Number 15, parks master plan, $125,000. Number 16, Sour Fields lighting, $485,000. Number 17, thoroughbred trail, $232,476. Number 18, unanticipated revenues, $946,629. Total 2019-2020 budget amendment of $1,054,833.
Thank you. Next item, number 10, discussion on city insurance agent of record, change from Roding Insurance Group to Chenault and Hope Insurance. City Solicitor, Ms. Ross.
Sure, you all received, I think it's this binder that's
This right here, would anyone like to read?
answers to the questions that were posed. If you'll recall, at the last meeting, I asked if you could submit those in writing, and I guess I get what I asked for because we did have a total of 70-something questions, combined down to 59, I think. The answers are there. The background documentation is tabbed. I'm happy to elaborate on any of the information presented in the binder. I don't want to go through the entire thing.
Would you like to see more?
So, please feel free to ask any questions that you would
Mayor.
like.
Commissioner, you have a question?
Yeah, Mayor, let it be known that staff has done a remarkable job on this process, especially over the last week. Our city solicitor, our staff, Charmaine, it's just been incredible to try to get the answers to all these questions that we had. So I move that Chenault Hogue again become our agent of record effective February the 11th, 2020, and to expire on October 20th of 2021.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Sauer, second by Commissioner Tippett. Discussion? Commissioner Waldridge.
I would like to second Sauer on appreciating Laura for staying in the office and every staff. I know you were in the office here, all of the staff that continue to put in work for this, because this is, we can get 70-something questions for a contract and not one question for $2.5 million, but we won't go there. But one thing that I want to say after gathering all of this information, as you see, this is what commissioners go through. After going through all of this, I don't see that there is a huge standing out difference of both companies. You adhere to what you're doing. However, one thing that outweighed one from the other in me reading these pages that I would like to share was the most important question of all, and that's how my staff works with either company. That stood out the most to me. There were huge differences in those. And I think that's what means the most to me. Reading this for Chennault and Hogue, Roding, all of these, you guys are very friendly and pleasant. And in your responsive time, most of your times can be timely and routine in dealing with routine matters. However, when I polled the staff, I made sure that my question was very clear, that I wanted my staff's opinion. I don't want their names. I don't want their departments. I don't want any of that. I just want their honesty in working with us. I respect them solely. I know they can do their job. They're competent in that. And I'm going to have to stand with my staff and say that the city manager's position in hiring someone new was the best decision for our city. So my city will be no, as far as the integrity of myself. We gave them 3 months. They've not done anything wrong. And based in, if you've read all of this or even skimmed it, you will see that this is a personal thing to make a decision than standing with anyone's integrity here. And reading, let's see, Mayor, not sure if you read all of this, but in reading these few pages tells me that where we stand with whom our insurance is right now with, that our city workers are much happier and feel that it's in due diligence that we've done the right thing in that. And I feel that any other time that we want to open this up, that Chennault and Hogue would also have that time to resubmit if they'd like. But I think by the people that we serve in our community, and I would love for everyone to see these responses. It's huge.
That's in section D.
This is in section D? Yes. D as in dog, yes. And just to support, I would like to share that for Roding Insurance, service advantages I've noticed with Roding Insurance are the following. They have stronger connections to multiple insurance companies, which allow the city to receive more competitive bids. They provide claims reports and whole claim analysis meetings to develop appropriate strategy for structuring our insurance coverage. They have a very broad experience in public sector coverage and can use the knowledge to share best practices in the city. For example, during the RFQ presentations that discuss cyber and ransom coverage. That was not previously discussed by Chennault and Hogue. They offer training that was previously not available to us, particularly in safety and risk management realm. Their staff is more prepared to be extensive to our team by offering additional services which free up our staff's time during the first 3 months. Examples of additional services: reviewing contracts, offering suggestions to contract language to best protect the city's interests, assisting in writing the health and safety training specialist job description, conducting a safety walk through Parks and Recreation to assist OSHA compliance review. And it goes further and further. Some of the concerns that my staff and our staff have concerns with where we were with the insurance companies was that no reports were issued indicating the status of citizen claims. If citizens contacted the City Hall about their claims, staff would need to contact Chennault and Hogue. Also, there were not evidence for many years of competitive bidding during the process occurring, placement for insurance products. When asked about this in the RFQ process, the responses were that the city wouldn't find better than KLC, and it wouldn't take 200 hours to bid it out. KLC promoted the scorecard as a means to reduce premiums. Chennault and Hogue did not. The deadline for responding to RFQs were extended specifically for Chennault and Hogue, reflects the agency's ability to respond timely. Had it not been extended, they would not have been considered. This goes on to tell us why our staff, whom will work with them directly, feel that right now we're in good hands and where we are. And as far as I'm concerned, all of the information that we've gathered over these 70-something questions, Mayor and City Manager and community, I feel with integrity that it's where it's easy, where I like both companies. I have no issues with them. But I'm standing with my staff and I'm standing with the city manager. The integrity of our commission is at hand. And I think that we stay where we are. And if they would like to rebid at a later date, then we can set that process up in due time. But that's where I stand.
Thank you. Commissioner Westman.
I'll just rebut against that a little bit. I find it a mischaracterization of most of the comments that were made in the staff reports as perpetrated by Commissioner Waldridge. There was one glowing review, but there are many that have accolades of either. And, I did take the time. I was here till 10 last night and then up till 5 this morning reading through every single paper. I appreciate staff very much for pulling all of that together in addition to the questions that we submitted, my open records request, to make sure that there was nothing else of concern going on. But, actually your binder was still in the mailbox last night, so I'm shocked that you read it. I just hate those comments that you like to throw out, but that's all I have to say. Mayor, call for the vote, please.
I'd like to make, I don't throw out comments, Mayor. I read specifically what our staff said. I've looked through, and most of it, if you paid attention to any of the comments that both of our, because we definitely went through a lot of information. And if you could see from the questions that we've asked for our staff to gather, if you paid attention to our last meeting where we spent 5 hours, most of it was redundancy. So technically, I didn't need to read it verbatim because it was redundancy. And furthermore, that our staff even had time because you had another whole binder of nothing but records requests for Shermay when she had probably other things to do, but just saying. And paper, so maybe we could cut back on recycling by finding another way to do records requests.
Any other members? Okay, if not, clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
No.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes, and I'd like to explain my vote, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I have struggled with this for about a month. So I have gone back and forth and back and forth. So what I have tried to do in my tenure as a city commissioner is not run away from tough votes. I've taken plenty of tough votes. I've faced them in full frontal assault. I've tried to be consistent in every one of my votes. So what I will do to you, instead of dragging this on, I will read my explanation to you. My vote to change the agent of record is in no way meant to be a poor reflection on the Rolling Company. I have consistently voted to promote and protect neighborhoods and all things that are uniquely Frankfort. Chenault and Hogue is a uniquely Frankfort entity. Yes.
Commissioner Weston. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Clerk's calling the roll.
I voted yes.
He voted yes at the
Just
end.
remind everybody, please vote and then explain your vote.
Commissioner Westman?
You did right.
I'll explain my vote as well, yes. And again, this is no reflection on either company. We had a poor system set up for the selection process, and I thought it was let go far too long. But again, it comes down to supporting local infrastructure, local businesses, local people, and when all else is weighed evenly, if we won't support our local businesses and our local people first, then what are we doing here? So.
Commissioner Sauer?
I vote yes. I must say, Roding showed us some savings in our insurance policy. That is not to say that Chenault Hogue couldn't also find savings in our policy. They are a company that took us from a $1 million policy down to a $700,000 policy. So I vote yes.
Mayor May.
I vote yes, motion is adopted. Are there any questions on the tentative agenda?
I do have something, Mayor. Sorry, I'm trying to find the number. Number 3, the surplus of the buses, I believe it is. Is that the one? Yes. We have an order to surplus buses. I just wanted to...
It's under action items.
Yes, right, sorry. I wanted to make sure that we had a process to offer those to the public who might be able to use those, and if that process had been defined for after surplusing. I don't know if anyone could speak to that since
Rebecca.
works just both out.
Or somebody from Transit, either one.
Transit not here.
I wasn't involved in this particular surplus, but typically what happens is since they are federal dollars that purchase these buses, there's a set process that has to be gone through. So I'm sure that Jennifer has done that, but I'll check with her and make sure.
In that instance, Mayor, can I ask that we pull that, or actually it's already in the action items. I'm confused tonight. Never mind.
You're good.
That was my only...
Any other questions?
Yeah, we're not finding it. I think it's gotten confused, and then my system wasn't pulled up, so.
If it's not paper.
I don't think I got it. I think I got copies. My system wouldn't pull up.
Okay, it should be like listed in a regular meeting?
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably an email that I sent you guys.
That link, the hyperlink thing.
What do you need?
Do you need
print it
a-
off.
Do you want a
Okay.
copy? I've got hard copies up there too, though. I had hard
Oh, wait a minute,
copies.
close. Oh, I was gonna say the staple is stuck in my finger. There's a hang on the box.
Oh, no, that's okay. Okay, here we go.
That's great.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to see if anything had changed, that's all I was looking at. I thought there wasn't there something on here about hiring staff for an ambulance? Was that taken?
Yeah, we've removed
Oh, we
It's
did
going to
it?
be in the work session discussion, item 3.
Yes.
Okay, but we removed that one, so.
We're talking about
We're gonna bring that up later.
hiring an aide. Yeah.
Okay, so we can bring that up at another meeting, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if it was being switched over to this one or not.
No.
Okay, thank you. I think that was all. Everything else seemed normal. That was the one I was trying to see if it gotten put on this one or not. But that's the only one. You want this copy back?
It's okay. I've got it on my computer.
Did you have any changes? I did.
Anyone else have any questions on the tentative agenda? I remember we added some items for Public Works. I was the only person that had a staff report tonight, by the way. If you keep track. I didn't mean to single you out, it was just, everybody back there looks so smug. Okay, if there's no, we'll move on to unfinished business then.
Any unfinished business? Oh, I did have one question. On the budget for the Thoroughbred Trail, is that enough for us to break ground and get that started? Or where are we at in that process? I know that the 240-something thousand, I think.
We just received word last week,
232.
since you all talked about budget amendments,
Yeah.
that transportation is going to cover the excessing cost. We bid it once, it came in high. Redeveloped our estimate. So now we're asking for a third of the project cost. We think, there's a chance we could expend a third of the project before
Okay.
July 1. We'll put the remainder of it on the FY '21 budget request.
Okay, Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about that. Okay.
It's good. I've been working on this since my
Yeah.
first term as mayor, which was started in 1996.
Wow.
And then it was 2 years.
Yeah.
And we still. And I didn't mean, it was the railroad we had the problems with back in the easements. So that was a long process.
And we will be made aware of when when Miss Beard installs the signs for Mr. Wandell Robinson, that we will all be there to sort of attend that
We can do an
groundbreaking
unveiling
event
if you
and
want
things,
to.
an unveiling sort of for him.
Yep.
That would be great.
Don't tell him if you don't tell him. It's a surprise.
We won't give him the day.
Surprise me.
Hopefully you won't watch the whole thing. That would be great if we could do something, okay?
Mayor. Back in July, we were brought a proposal forward about a potential to have a solar farm here in Frankfurt, and staff was going to work on that and bring us back something, and that's been quite a while ago. I'm wondering if we can have an update by email from staff about the progress on developing that.
Is that in our, I'm sorry, is that in our purview?
To
develop a solar farm?
I think he was asking the feasibility. Was that what it was?
We were addressed with the proposal, and we tasked staff to research it and
someone,
an update.
I forgot where it came from, but
So will we be supplying energy into the Frankfurt Plant Board's portfolio?
We know you're not for it, Commissioner Tippett. I just asked for an update.
I'd like to have some information, Commissioner. Is it in our purview to create solar
It's
energy?
exactly what's on his, this right here is exactly what you got, which is his little thing that was made by, what was his name, Andy? Was it Andy? Did Andy do that Did Andy do that presentation, I believe? A few months back? Yeah, I believe Andy, okay, yeah, Andy a while back made that presentation, and that was sort of the argument around the whole Frankfurt Plant Board at that time, I believe.
City Manager didn't give an update.
We received an unsolicited proposal for a project, solar farm from Andy McDonald's company. What's the name?
Earth Tools.
Earth Tools. And I believe there's some emails out there. If not, we did discuss it in one meeting. Mr. McDonald stood up and spoke. We've researched it, and it looks like the proposal hinged on the fact that a solar farm could be built and they could utilize Frankfurt Plant Board infrastructure to get the electricity back to us without paying any of the routine maintenance on the infrastructure. And I think Mr. McDonald is going to get back with the Frankfurt Plant Board to see how that might be worked out. I think there's a lot of federal precedent and law related to just building a remote structure and having to share in the cost of the maintenance of the infrastructure that wasn't included in the original proposal.
So the question I have is, Mr. City Manager, what benefit would this project be for the city of Frankfurt? Or would it be for the benefit of Frankfurt Plant Board customers?
The proposal was specific to the city of Frankfurt to sell us a cheaper rate of electricity than the Frankfurt Plant Board, and we would save money over time. There were some federal incentives involved. But again, if we took the proposal as listed, then we would stop paying for the maintenance of the lines for the Frankfurt Plant Board, and that cost would fall on the citizens while we received a lower electricity rate.
That's your question.
And it was your,
suffice for now. Thank you.
It was your opinion, Mr. City Manager, that there were some flaws in the proposal. Is that not correct? Refresh my memory.
Yes, but it was also my understanding that continuing discussions were going on between Mr. McDonald and the Frankfurt Plant Board.
So help me with this one more, a little bit. May I extend this conversation? We're going to be here a while, Mayor, so I might as well extend the conversation a little longer.
Sure thing.
So this proposal has absolutely nothing to do with the proposed solar field that's going to be built by the KYMEA consortium that the previous plant board voted against. So the two are not integrated.
It has nothing to do with KYMEA and solar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah. So I have some unfinished business, Keith. So in regards to the high school football fields that I've been trying to really push into getting turf. And that's not, it doesn't seem like it's an interest of all of the city commissioners. How can we, or is there a way that we can communicate with the high schools to see if they're going to turf their own fields? And if so, can we talk about what, or an amount that our lease looks like, that we can maybe lease their fields for city usage, that we can pay them to lease versus pay them to build? Is there some verbiage that we can use to try to move toward that?
Well, to answer the first question, I have talked to Superintendent Kopp, and I believe, and he made it clear, it's at the purview of the school board.
Correct.
But I believe he's received permission to possibly submit that for them.
Okay.
But it's really dependent on them approving the construction of turf on the two county schools.
Right.
I would think if they were to do that,
That's the right figure.
you could make a request of them to see what they would lease the field for.
So,
That could be a possibility.
okay, for us to use for city events and for, okay. Thank you.
Any other unfinished business? If not, any new business?
I hope Sour feels better.
What?
Poor thing down there.
It's here somewhere. Anyway, I can remember. What was that street name?
Leonard Wood.
Leonard Wood had a request for speed trailer on Leonard Wood and also on Langford. So put those on the list. I know it takes a while to get those out there at those locations, but when they zoom by Lowe's down there, sometimes I think that's a hazard. At least this person reported so. Secondly, I'm sure we have accident counts at every intersection or every location in Frankfurt. I'd like to know if we had any accidents at Petco in that particular shopping center and the adjacent Walgreens in those two locations.
In the parking lots?
Yes.
We don't do parking lot accidents.
But you respond to an accident.
Only if they're injury.
What?
Only if they're injury on private property.
Well, let's find out if there was anybody injured at those two locations, if that's the way it is. I don't mean to be snippy with you, Chief.
It's been a long night, Commissioner.
It has been. That's all I have.
All right, any other new business? Did anyone else?
All right.
Have any new business?
No, we have $300,000 worth of lights.
Is it 300?
Are we ready to
$400,000
adjourn now?
Yeah.
Or is it 400,000?
$400,000 worth of lights. We have that.
Public comments if there are any.
Oh, yeah, Mayor, do we recognize public comments if anybody
Yeah, anybody else?
endured our meeting and wants to speak? Okay.
Okay, just so you know, legislation got filed today regulating splash pads. House Senate Bill 159, brand new. Does it have to be chemically treated? Does it require, I'm doing this from memory.
Like preserve.
Does it like at Boys, BUOY, polls, all that?
And I will leave my binder of many things with Shermay, and if the community would like to come and read any of this, you are more than welcome.
Actually, there are a few things in there that might need to be redacted due to personal information.
Yeah.
Would you like to take that out so the community can come and read? I'd like someone to get some use out of it.
If it's possible, we could go through it tomorrow and leave it somewhere.
Yeah, I'll leave it with you guys.
Okay.
Move that we adjourn, Mayor.
Moved by Commissioner Sauer, second by, is that Commissioner Wisdom? Yes. Second by Commissioner Wisdom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?